We have talked a lot on this show about how Donald Trump has not just gone back on his promises, but has completely betrayed his own voters in the way that he has broken them. And the clearest example of that, of course, is the promise that grocery prices would be lower, that we would have cheaper eggs under Donald Trump. And in fact, the opposite has happened. And Donald Trump admittedly does not care. But now he's gone farther than not caring. He is attacking his own supporters for asking him why grocery prices aren't lower. Yes, he is now attacking MAGA in a crazy post that we are going to get into. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video. And if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way, and it really does mean a lot to me. Now, before we get into that crazy post and article from Donald Trump, I want to hear someone who I think gave great commentary on where his focus is, and that's friend of the show, Tim Miller.
This week, he signed an executive order hitting the firm that represented Hillary Clinton's campaign in the DNC in 2016. He also went after the firm representing special counsel Jack Smith. Is retribution his priority? And if so, Tim, will issues like the economy and cost of living, are they going to suffer from a lack of focus?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought this story up because this is one of those examples. This is just a shocking abuse of power. Obviously, D.C. law firms are not going to be the most sympathetic victims here of Donald Trump and like the most effective, people to put forth during a political campaign. But that doesn't mean that there shouldn't be a focus on it. I mean, it is absolutely outrageous that a law firm would be targeted by the federal government for doing its job, which is, defending clients. The ripple effects of this are real. The other thing is there are only certain number of law firms. I know it feels like there are a lot of lawyers in D.C., and there are, but there really are only a certain number of law firms that can take on especially sensitive cases, right? And so if the federal government continues to go after, people on Jack Smith's team, go after people from the Mueller investigation, et cetera, it's going to be hard for them to find counsel that has the experience, et cetera, to be able to represent them if Trump's going after these law firms. So I think it's a major story. And yes, I also do think that it's distracting the administration from what would probably be a more prudent use of their time on the economy.
And let me remind our viewers that Trump was asked in a debate if he will seek retribution against his political enemies. And he said, quote, "My retribution is going to be my success." Is that what we've seen so far? Or has it been a lot of retribution?
No, we've seen mostly him focusing on retribution and, culture wars and advancing kind of the silly agenda items of changing the names of bodies of water, et cetera. I look at the economy. I, from the start, was deeply skeptical of Trump's economic agenda. I think it was undercovered during the campaign. I think it was very obvious that it was going to be disruptive to the country and probably inflationary. But even I am shocked that, like 6 weeks in, the damage that has been done to, the loss of jobs, as we mentioned, from federal government workers, but then the ripple effects of the people in those communities that are going to be harmed. And then on top of that, we've seen the stock market crashing, consumer confidence is way down, the Fed's estimates for our GDP growth is way down. There are real storm clouds on the horizon. I know it's felt longer, but he's only been in there 6 weeks. It's been really kind of an astonishing, amount of economic failure already from the first month and a half of his presidency.
So much of this Trump administration early on has been about owning the libs, right? The appointment of Kash Patel or a Pete Hegseth, RFK Jr. The Gulf of America is a perfect example of how MAGA's real goal is to just make liberals upset. And yeah, we are upset that the economy is tanking, prices are skyrocketing, and Donald Trump is doing nothing about it while he pardons violent criminals and allows mass weaponization at the DOJ, as Tim mentioned. Yeah, of course we would be upset about that when our agenda is to make people's lives better. I think we would definitely rather have that. But Donald Trump doesn't care. And like I said, it's gotten to the point that he is so angry that he's getting pushback that now he is attacking MAGA. So he posted an article by conservative podcaster Charlie Kirk telling MAGA to shut up. Let's take a look. Shut up about egg prices. Trump is saving consumers millions, Donald Trump posted on Truth Social. Remember when Donald Trump promised he'd lower grocery prices and the cost of living? Rep. Melanie Stansbury whined in a recent X post. I guess he's been too busy dismantling the federal government and compromising our national security to get to it. These are 3 problems with the line of attack. First, the high egg prices is in no way Donald Trump's fault. Remember when Donald Trump promised he'd lower grocery prices and the cost of living? Rep. Melanie Stansbury whined in a recent ex post. I guess he's been too busy dismantling the federal government and compromising our national security to get to it. There are 3 problems with this line of attack, writes Kirk. First, the high price of eggs is in no way President Trump's fault. Wait a second. But we're going to take a quick time out there, because when Joe Biden was president, I was led to believe by MAGA that everything that ever went wrong, anytime, anywhere, was Joe Biden. That somehow he had a little magic knob in the Oval Office that controlled the price of rent, of gas, of groceries, that everything was his fault. It was the Biden economy. It was so bad. Although it was booming, it was so bad. But then all of a sudden, over the summer, it was actually Kamala Harris who had complete control of that knob. So you're telling me not only does that knob not exist, but it can't be attributed to whatever Democrat you're running against? And that Donald Trump and his inflationary policy, which he has admitted is hurting consumers, isn't responsible in any way for hurting consumers? Something that members of his own administration, his own appointed chair of the Federal Reserve said? That doesn't make a lot of sense, Charlie. I think there's one big problem with your argument, that it's a lie. Donald Trump is responsible. More importantly, Donald Trump doesn't care. All he cares about is going after his enemies. He laid that out on the campaign trail. We warned people about it. Unfortunately, they did not listen. But now we are continuing this conversation about what Donald Trump's real focus is. Someone who did a great job doing that is Jamie Raskin right here.
Our Republican colleagues are now trying to dismantle the power of the courts. The courts, the independent judiciary, of course, is a major bulwark against everything that Donald Trump and Elon Musk are trying to do in demolishing federal agencies and departments, freezing the spending of federal funds on appropriated purposes, and just generally violating, trampling the Constitution and the rights of the people, including in the birthright citizenship matter, where they just want to nullify the first sentence of the 14th Amendment. Anyway, they came up with a whole bunch of bills meant to just sweep the judiciary out of the way. One of them is called the No Rogue Rulings Act, which would say that federal constitutional injunctions by a United States District Court cannot apply nationally. And they had a very amusing chart that they put up showing that the number of federal injunctions imposed against the Trump administration, even in just the first 6 weeks, is dramatically higher than any prior administration, whether we're talking Biden or Reagan or Bush or Obama or what have you. There have already been 46 temporary restraining orders or preliminary injunctions issued by federal courts. And so they were putting the chart up to show how unfairly Donald Trump is being treated. He's such a victim of this runaway imperial judiciary. Well, in fact, it proves just the opposite, that he's engaged in terribly lawless and irresponsible violations of people's rights. And whether that's trying to nullify the citizenship of millions of people by deleting the birthright citizenship clause, or dismantling federally created, congressionally created agencies and departments like NOAA and the National Weather Service, or the Food and Drug Administration, or the Department of Education, or the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. All of these were created by Congress through an exercise of our lawmaking power. If anybody is going to destroy the Food and Drug Administration, or the State Department, or the Department of Education, it will be the Congress of the United States. And why don't they just bring it to Congress if they want to tear down the federal agencies and departments? Because they know they can never get it passed. You can never get a majority of people in the House and the Senate to vote to dismantle the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. They can never get that through the people's representatives. They don't want to take responsibility for voting for it, so they've created a fourth branch of government, Elon Musk nominally reporting in his Doge apparatus to Donald Trump, and they're just going ahead and doing it. Well, luckily, the courts are striking it down. But now they want to say that the injunctions that are entered by courts in these cases can only apply in that court. It would be as if the law had been that in Brown versus Board of Education, the ruling to desegregate the schools applied only to Linda Brown herself and the handful of other plaintiffs who came with her, rather than applying across the country. And that, of course, is not the rule that they wanted anyway when Biden was president. You remember a reactionary rogue judge they've got down in Texas named Judge Kaczmarek. Not only did his injunctions against birth control and other, wild, culture war rulings apply nationally, but they were forum shopping to get into his court. And that's a separate problem, being able to shop to get into a particular court. But in any event, he was reversed in the morning after pill case by the Supreme Court. The point is that a federal constitutional ruling by district court should apply across the land, and then it can proceed to be appealed all the way up. And we shouldn't completely rewrite the federal rules of civil procedure and appellate procedure in order to suit Donald Trump, because he doesn't like the fact that he's losing every day in court. That's my final message for you. We are winning in court on all of these issues in terms of the private data of people, the breach of the Treasury Department and IRS computer systems, securing our private data, blockading the mass firing of probationary employees. They're on probation not because they're in trouble, they're on probation because they got promoted, like my guest to the joint session last night, Dr. Lauren McGee from NIH, who's this brilliant scientist and juvenile cancer researcher who got sacked 1 week before her probationary period was going to be up and she was going to become a permanent employee. But on that Valentine's Day massacre, they got rid of everybody who was in the probationary status, which is completely whimsical, irrational, and arbitrary, and it's unlawful.
We have to connect Donald Trump's weaponization of the government, his attacks on federal agencies, to his complete disregard for his campaign promises. It is not enough to just point out the awful things he's doing. I wish it was, but MAGA made it incredibly clear, and so did independent voters during the past campaign, that they don't want to listen unless we make it crystal clear. And even in those instances, sometimes they still don't listen. So it's not just enough to attack Donald Trump. We have to provide our alternative solution, which is to not cause inflation and to not cut Social Security and Medicaid. Seems pretty simple, right? Seems like that would break through to people. But we have to keep hammering that message home if we want it to break through. It is what this show was founded on, and it's what we're going to keep talking about every single day. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button. You can leave a like on this video. And if you stuck around to the end, you can drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I will see you soon.